I sneezed and a demon went up my nose. Written by Ren Bryant. Read by the author. It all happened because no one said God bless you after I sneezed. I was a sophomore at Northern Vermont University. There, in my macroeconomics class, I let it rip. Achoo! No one said a word. The class continued normally. Yet, immediately after I sneezed, I felt weak and faint. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath to steady myself, but that didn't help. It was as if all the energy was leaving my body. I slumped in my desk, and then, zzz, a jolt zapped me to attention. I felt like I was hit with a defibrillator. Hellish air swept in through my nostrils as I inhaled. It burned, making me feel like a furnace inside. My stomach cramped. My eyes flickered. I felt the presence of something perverse within. Something wicked racked my entire body. A tingly sensation like fire ants coursed through my veins. A demon turned my scrawny $1.50 soaking wet, not yet of drinking age body into a furnace of evil. I immediately felt bloodlust, the savage need to kill, and I couldn't resist the urge. It consumed me until I could take no more. I jumped out of my desk, yelling, Ishtar Kali Beelzebub, and ran out of the room. With a ballpoint pen in my hand, I attacked anyone in my way. Ishtar Kali Beelzebub! I stabbed whoever I saw. Ishtar Kali Beelzebub! The blood sprayed on my shirt and splattered on my face. Ishtar Kali Beelzebub! Ishtar Kali Beelzebub! I ran into the woods near campus. No one dared follow. The next thing I know, I was somewhere deep in the woods. I snapped out of my psychosis and felt normal again. I had no idea where I was at, only that I was surrounded by forests and covered in other people's blood. I had full recollection of what I had done and felt sick to my stomach. I started dry heaving in disgust. I don't know what came over me, why I went on that rampage. Up until that point, I was a normal college kid. I had a typical suburban life, played baseball, had a girlfriend, went to church, sometimes. The whole Wonder Years experience. There was nothing out of the ordinary about me. Certainly no violent tendencies or anything that would point to me losing my shit and killing people. I wasn't a psycho. I broke down sobbing because I knew my life was over. I couldn't go back to campus. I couldn't go back to civilization. I'd be locked up. First-degree murder for sure. Luckily, Vermont isn't a death penalty state, otherwise I'd be riding Old Sparky in no time. Frankly, I deserved it after what I had done. The sky was getting dark, so I found a jumble of branches and sticks and made a makeshift shelter as best I could. I was no survivor man, but I knew I needed protection from the elements. The woods got cold at night, and who knows what animals would come around. Plus, I needed to sleep and think. I needed time to assess my options. I woke in the middle of the night shivering. Wearing only bloody t-shirt and jeans, I was too exposed. April in Vermont isn't warm, not in the middle of the night anyways. Not in the woods. My teeth chattered and my mind went into overdrive. I figured if the police didn't find me, I'd die of exposure. I heard animal sounds in the distance, something rummaging, maybe a bear, hopefully a bear. I deserved to be gnawed on, chewed, and digested after what I did. I was an animal myself, and I deserved an animal's fate. I curled into a fetal position and wished myself dead before succumbing to exhaustion and falling back asleep. When I woke up, the sun was shining and my stomach was grumbling. I could taste other people's dried metallic blood on my lips. Then I thought, maybe I could starve myself. Maybe that would do the job, though I knew it would take a while. My stomach rumbled again, and I knew I didn't have the willpower to follow through on starvation. As I was thinking of ways to die, I felt a tickle in my nose. I tried my best to reverse the feeling, but it was too late. The inevitable was coming. I sneezed again, forcefully. Spit flew from my mouth and the sound echoed throughout the forest, scaring some birds overhead. Immediately after I sneezed, I felt weak again, the same feeling I had in the classroom. Then, a sensation of inhaling pure evil. I was overcome with the intense urge to kill. Moloch Amon Gorgo! I yelled with demonic guttural intensity. I rampaged through the forest, a possessed man crashing over fallen branches, snapping sticks in half with my heavy clomps. Moloch Amon Gorgo! I came to a fox's den at the base of a tree and began to dig. I was an animal myself, my hands the paws of a predator. I needed to kill. Moloch Amon Gorgo! Inside the hole was an entire fox family. I smashed the skulls of the baby with a rock. The adult foxes chewed at my arms, though I felt no pain as they punctured my flesh. The blood ran onto my hands as I grabbed each adult fox by the neck and compressed their trachea, squeezing tighter and tighter. They scratched at me in a desperate bid to escape, but soon became weak as their life ended. Moloch, Amon, Gorgo! When I came around the second time, I found myself face down in the mud. I had a splitting headache and my chewed-up arms throbbed. Sickness came over me again as I thought about my actions. Why was I snapping? Why did I feel compelled to kill? What were those names I was shouting? It was like a light switch flipped inside of me. 1 minute I was fine, the next I was a crazed killer. I knew there was something very wrong with me and I needed help, but I didn't know who to turn to without getting locked up. I walked for 2 hours until I came to the edge of town. Hiding behind a tree, I surveyed the scene and figured out a plan. There was a Catholic church on the corner, and I thought I could make it there without being spotted. I was a mess and knew that if someone saw me, they would call the cops. But I figured maybe a priest would believe my story about feeling like I was possessed. Maybe he could help. I thought it was my only shot. I snuck down to the church no problem, but inside were 3 parishioners on their knees praying near the altar. Old women. I hid in the shadows at the back and waited for them to leave before I sought out the priest in the confession booth. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned, I said, and broke down crying. My life as I know it is over. Though we had the screen between us, I'm pretty sure the priest could see I was a total bloody mess. Yet he said nothing about it. The priest went through the standard confession protocol as I explained my sins in vague terms. I didn't say I killed people or animals, though. Instead, I said I felt a lust inside of me that I couldn't control. I said the feelings made me want to do bad things. The priest absolved my sins and began to launch into a story from the Bible. That's when I knew I made a mistake going to see him. I'm not sure what I was expecting. Maybe an instant exorcism? But a Sunday school lecture about the nature of sin wasn't something that was going to help me. Plus, I was feeling very uncomfortable in the church. I mean, very uncomfortable. My skin was crawling and I felt bile coming up from my stomach. It was as if my whole being was rejecting the place. I quickly thanked the priest and exited as carefully as I entered. I spied a park across from the church filled with lunchgoers. Having not eaten in more than a day, my stomach was in knots. Though I wanted to die for my actions, I also wanted some food. I hid in a bush behind a park bench where a mother was having a picnic with her young daughter. I don't know if it was the pepper from whatever they were eating or some pollen, but I felt my nose tingle. I sniffed and rubbed it, trying to get rid of the sensation. At that point, I hadn't put 2 and 2 together. I didn't realize that sneezing triggered the demon. That didn't come until after what happened next. I sneezed. I felt weak. An overwhelming evil entered me. I needed to kill. I jumped from the bushes, screaming, Ahriman, Asmodeus, Mephistopheles! The girl and her mom shrieked. She grabbed her daughter tight in her bosom as I launched myself towards them, shrieking, Ahriman, Asmodeus, Mephistopheles! I tackled them both and smashed their heads together repeatedly. The skulls made a sickening sound when cracking together. Ahriman, Asmodeus, Mephistopheles! Thud, thud, thud. The others in the park screamed in terror and ran as fast as they could away from the mutilation. Pieces of skull and chunks of brain flew in my possessed face. Ahriman, Asmodeus, Mephistopheles! I ran back into the woods, raving like a lunatic I had become. Ahriman, Asmodeus, Mephistopheles! Ahriman, Asmodeus, Mephistopheles! When I came to back in the forest, foliage stuck to my sticky, bloodied face. I replayed the day's horror in my mind. So much violence, so much killing. Why? I wanted to die. I was a monster and I deserved it. I searched for ways to kill myself, a cliff where I could jump off of or something poisonous I can consume. But there was nothing. Maybe starvation or exposure was my best way to go after all, I thought. Then, something clicked in my brain. I remembered an article I read that spoke of an old wives' tale or some superstition from the Middle Ages about the origins of people saying God bless you after a sneeze. The belief was that evil spirits can enter your body after you sneeze if people didn't say God bless you. That phrase prevented it from happening. Maybe it wasn't superstition after all. I thought back to my first incident, what happened in my macroeconomics class. I sneezed. No one said anything. That's when I first felt the sensation of evil and the need to kill. When it happened the second time, I was alone in the woods, so there was no one there to protect my soul. And in the bushes, it was the same thing. A sneeze, no God bless you, an impulse to kill. If this was true, I thought, I could be cured. Demonic possession could be cured. It also meant the killings weren't my fault. I needed help, but I didn't know where to turn. Demons were the church's domain, that is true, but I tried the church route already. Plus, I couldn't go back to the church I just left. The police would be swarming the area, looking for the head-smashing killer. Actually, if I showed up anywhere like I did, with blood splattered across my face and my arms chewed by foxes, I would be instantly locked up, whether in the county jail or the loony bin. I thought about my options. The only one who might believe my story and not throw me out immediately would be Wendy, my girlfriend. We had been together a year now, so she knows the true me. She knows I'm not a psycho killer. But I'm sure word would have gotten to her about what I did. It would have been the talk of northern Vermont. I wasn't exactly inconspicuous as I went on a rampage and started stabbing people with my pen. Someone on campus would have told the police that she was my girlfriend, and they would have questioned her. The police would have told her to stay away from me, and if she does see me, to call them right away. Wendy sounded like a great idea, but I wasn't even sure I could face her, not after becoming the monster that I am. Plus, what if I sneezed when I saw her? Would I bash her head in too? I sat against a tall oak tree and thought about it for a good while, before realizing that if I wanted help, this was my only option. So it was off to Wendy's I went. I followed the woods around town, staying far enough in them not to be seen, but close enough to the edge to keep my sense of direction. Wendy's apartment was just off campus, a place close to the bars on Hyacinth Street. I thought I could wait until nighttime, when there would be students stumbling home drunk, and a disheveled me wouldn't look out of place. The plan worked. I got to Wendy's door without being seen, or at least with no one stopping me or saying anything to me. I knocked. "Wendy, it's me, Myron," I said loud enough for her to hear me on the other side of the door. "I need to talk to you." I took a few sniffs. Don't sneeze. Don't sneeze. Whatever you do, don't sneeze. I heard the deadbolt unlock, took a few more sniffs, and as the door opened, I was greeted by the barrel of a Glock 19. The police were waiting for me. I was handcuffed immediately and dragged like a dog to a waiting unmarked car. They made sure to whack my head against the frame of the door when they put me inside. "Sorry," one of the cops said sarcastically, "though you should know about getting head smashed." At the station, they chained me to a desk in the interrogation room. I pleaded my innocence and told them I was possessed. They laughed until I sneezed again and began barking like a rabid dog. "Shiva Marduk Astaroth!" I growled. I yanked so violently at my handcuffs that my wrists began to bleed. They left me in the room until I calmed down, said it was quite the acting job, and then tossed me in jail. They threw the book at me, and I didn't bother trying to defend my actions. I pled guilty to the whole thing. I was a monster, and I deserved punishment, even if my actions were not my fault. In prison, they put me with a cellmate, no matter how much I protested against the decision. It worked well until I sneezed the second day I was with him. I bit through his throat and chewed his eyeballs out before the guard could intervene. They zapped me something good after that incident, enough to knock me out. That's the last time I had any sort of human contact. When I came to, I found myself in my current predicament. 24 hours a day, I'm in a tiny dark cage. There's a sliver of light that comes in between 6 and 7 as the sun sets, but otherwise, I get no light. They don't even talk to me when giving me meals. They push them through a hole with a stick. I push out an empty tray when I'm done. There's only one way out for me now. I know that. That's why I've got this bed sheet tight around my neck. It'll only take a few minutes, I think. Quicker than starving myself, that's for sure. I'll tie it to the jail bars and jump down with all the force I can. I don't think it will be enough to break my neck like in the movies, but it should be enough to close up my breathing tubes. My body will twitch, a bit like those foxes I smothered, and I'll slowly asphyxiate. That will be the end of this nightmare. I should have done this at the beginning. I should have jumped off some campus building and splattered myself on concrete or found a train to run in front of. But I didn't. So here I am. So, before the blackness comes for me, let me end this note with a warning. The next time you hear someone sneeze, be sure to tell them God bless you. You may think it's silly, that it's some superstitious mumbo-jumbo, but their life may depend on it. Signed, Myron Ribault, Northern State Correctional Facility, July 15th, 2018.